Okay, with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks for being with us tonight. For those who don't know me, I'm Chris Watson, Director of Communications for the association. I'll ask you to utilize the chat feature for asking your questions to Dr. Zayas. We'll dedicate as much time as we need to get through it, but I think we have found that many of us have the same questions. So we'll go through it for as long as we need, and hopefully everybody gets what they need. As I said, I'm going to record it on my end and post it. So if you need to go back and pull a soundbite, you're certainly welcome to do that. So having said that, Dr. Zayas is in the other room in his office. And today was an exciting day at the association. So I'll let Robert kind of start with that.
Thanks, Chris. And as Chris said, thank you everybody for joining us on such short notice on a Friday evening. Today was an exciting day for the State High School Athletic Association, but it was more of an exciting day for the student athletes throughout New York State that are going to be positively impacted by the authorization that was provided by the Department of Health and the Governor's Office today to allow all sports to begin as of February 1st with permission from their local Department of Health.
And that was the first question in the chat from Bell. He just kind of wanted you to relate, I understand it correctly. Eventually, practice and games are permitted, but you need your local health department approval.
That's exactly what the guidance states that we were provided today by the Department of Health. They do need permission from their respective local authorities in order to be able to participate in games and competition in high-risk sports.
Next question from Pat Spadler. Can the winter season be extended for high risks past February 28th?
Yeah, the season end date is going to be determined by each individual section. So we have permission to start as of February 1st, but keep in mind, there are practice requirements that all sports need to meet prior to playing any games or scrimmages, and the sections will determine when each individual season will conclude.
Okay, next is Lindsay Kramer. He wants to ask about Monday when we talk about releasing the new updated the last athletic document. Why don't you first talk about the document, maybe what you think will be in there on Monday?
We released the resource document and then we provided an update in mid-December to provide sport considerations for our members to help them understand what they need to do at interscholastic athletics for their student athletes. So on Monday, we'll simply be updating the document to include those high-risk sports that were authorized today. Each sport is given individual sport considerations. There's no major rule changes, but more considerations that coaches and athletic directors need to be aware of when hosting high-risk sports.
Now's a good time to ask if you're just joining the call or maybe might have slipped your mind, if you can mute yourself, whether you're on a computer or on a phone. If we could get a mute on everybody who's joining us on the call tonight, that would be extremely helpful. Second part of Lindsay's question kind of piggybacks on what we talked about earlier was, Section 3 had talked about potentially having their schedule end February 28th. So could that winter season push into fall sports season too?
Yeah, that's going to be completely determined by each individual section, and they'll be working with their member schools. We had a great discussion with our 11th section executive directors earlier today once we received the authorization, and I can guarantee all sections are working to make sure that they're going to be able to provide a beneficial season for all student athletes in those school districts that are able to go ahead and provide these opportunities for these student athletes.
Based on obviously us just getting the guidance today, probably at about 3 o'clock, and rallying you guys together tonight at 7 o'clock, I think there's going to be a lot of unanswered questions and questions we're going to have to get answers to, and this might fall in that category, Robert. Paul Ross says, if there is a hang-up between local health officials that play in the same section or league, so maybe an Erie County, Niagara County situation, what would be a contingency plan?
Yeah, I think, as Watson just said, we just received this guidance at 3 o'clock this afternoon. There's going to continue to be some challenges and obstacles that we'll have to work through, but I'm confident that we'll be able to do that. But that's a perfect example of something that we'll have to go ahead and address as we proceed with the guidance that we were provided today.
And I think, as we talked about, I think there's going to be a lot of questions about it, and we're going to take some time to figure out those answers. And obviously, February 1st, yes, it's just around the corner, but it also gives us a little time to work with that as well. Bill Blackwell asked the question, is there any change to the minimum amount of practices that are required for high-risk sports?
No, absolutely not. The minimum practice requirements is in place as a safety precaution for our student athletes. So for the winter sports season, wrestling will require 10 practices before those student athletes are able to participate in an event. All other sports will require 6 practices. That is not going to be modified or reversed.
At this point, Robert, if I can ask a favor, Nicole Menner just joined the call. If you could give Nicole permission to record. Again, if you're on the phone, if you could mute yourself, or if you're on the computer, if you could mute yourself, that would be helpful. We'll get Nicole the permission, and then that'll give us the opportunity. So that was Phil's question. Okay, next one. Will the sports seasons be shortened since we're coming up against springtime sooner than later?
Yeah, right now the spring sports season is scheduled to start on April the 19th, but sections will have the autonomy to determine the length of the seasons. Right now, February 1st will mark the start date of high-risk winter sports season. Those sections will be able to determine if that season goes into early March or even mid-March, and if there is any overlap between what is now going to be fall sports season 2, which we're excited. We'll be hosting football and volleyball that, as you may recall, was postponed on September the 9th to March 1st.
Okay, next question, Greg kind of circles back. I think he's just looking for clarification. You need local health department permission for both practice and games, correct? Essentially, you need the local health department to okay high risk everything, right?
Exactly. The local health department will need to provide permission for schools to participate in contact practices in those high risk sports.
Yep. Adam asked, did low and moderate risk sports need permission from their local health departments as well?
No, they did not. That authorization was provided by the governor on August 24th. They did not need permission from their local health department to begin.
Okay. Matt Spielman asks, is the 7 consecutive day rule waived, or will it be waived?
We are actually talking about that this weekend in our meeting with the section executive directors earlier today. That topic was brought up. So I will be meeting with the officers of the association this weekend to seek approval for the 7-day rule to be waived.
Okay. Back to Lindsay Kramer, kind of a two-parter, so I'll start here. Did you get any word from the state, i.e. state officials, why they allowed high-risk sports? Why was there a change of heart?
We did not, but I think this is something that state officials have been considering for a number of weeks now. We heard in November and even in early December that in order to expand the sport offerings, we were going to have to see a decline in infection rates and hospitalizations. Governor Cuomo's press conference earlier today, we did see some evidence of that, but we're excited and we're extremely appreciative of the governor and the Department of Health taking a look at this and providing this authorization today.
Next one, Mike asked, there had been some legislators this past week that began pushing for high-risk sports. Had you heard anything this week that might have indicated that approval was coming?
No, we didn't hear anything different than we've heard in the past few weeks. I think this is an example of our state officials taking a look at the situation and providing authorization at a time when students very much need to have something positive, and participating in interscholastic athletics will certainly serve as a positive in so many student athletes' lives.
So at this point, you guys all know it, but I'll remind you, if you have questions, please put them in the chat. Certainly we've got more time. So if you have anything you want Dr. Zayas to kind of touch on, please let us know. Robert, I think, I don't want to belabor the point, but I think that there were a couple main things that you and I had talked about in the 4 hours we've been together since this came out. The local health department approval is the most important thing. And then it comes down to a school and a section decision as well. So, we characterize this as very good news, and it's kind of, here's the news, but there are some caveats with it.
Yeah, there's definitely caveats, and there should be. I mean, we're talking about a situation that we've been waiting on interscholastic athletics at the high risk level to be authorized for a number of months now, and we're extremely excited to be able to provide these sport offerings for our student athletes.
James Allen, if you could mute your phone, I love you, but if you can mute your phone, I got a couple in the chat right now. Clarification from the previous question about spring break. Would Easter and spring break affect, I guess, what would be fall sports 2 or spring sports?
Yeah, those holidays will certainly impact the sports season, but they always impact the sports season. What we're looking at right now is we received authorization today to provide an additional approximately 200,000 student athletes the opportunity to participate in their sport. And that's exciting news. But we're going to have condensed seasons and we're going to have some challenges and obstacles to overcome. But more than anything else, I'm excited for those student athletes tonight that were given news today that they've been waiting on, that's going to give them an opportunity to represent their school, to represent their community, and to wear their jersey to participate in their sport with their friends under the direct supervision of their school board approved coach.
To follow up on that, to go on a Watson tangent, I have an opportunity to communicate with a lot of student athletes on social media through this whole thing, and it's been March to current. So it's been 8 months of this, and a lot of the interactions start negative and they turn positive. And the direct messages that we oversee here are a lot of kids with hearts and a lot of kids with thumbs up emojis and a lot of kids that are pretty excited. And those were the same kids that were communicating with this office that were pretty down for a number of weeks and months. And I don't want to say they lost hope, but it was certainly fading. And those kids are certainly feeling better about things tonight. And that's the nicest thing to see on our part, that's for sure. We talked about the Easter break holiday. Phil Sanzo asks, will local health departments need to authorize sports prior to each season? So do we need to get authorization in fall too for a sport like football?
I would think the local health departments are going to work closely with their sections and their school districts. I do not believe that they're going to need to authorize on a monthly basis or prior to each season. The local health department, I envision, will provide authorization. And then obviously, if there's concerns, then that local health department could go ahead and work with the schools and our sections. And we will make sure that we will do whatever they think is necessary to mitigate any risk associated with participation.
And we should mention too, it says in the latest document, it's been clear all along that we have the opportunity to bring interscholastic sports back, but if the numbers trend up, or a local health department, or in the case of the Department of Health, it could be taken away. So we've got to keep doing the right things. And it kind of leads me to my next question. We spent so many of these Zooms early on talking about masks. Do you have to wear a mask? What are the mask rules? Who has to wear a mask? Lindsay Kramer asked, are they going to be required for high-risk winter sports? And what is a mask policy for fans, and especially indoor fans?
Well, the policy that we were given early on by the Department of Health states that everyone must wear a mask if you cannot maintain 6 feet social distance. The only exception is for students who are not able to tolerate a face covering during physical activity. That's what the Department of Health has given us, and that our schools are going to abide by when it comes to face coverings and masks.
Not to skip on an order, but Lindsay was specifically asking, and maybe I misinterpreted it. He was talking about how about an admission policy? Are we still looking at 2 fans per or 2 people per student athlete?
Yes, that's what the Department of Health guidance that was distributed today also says, that no more than 2 spectators per participant. However, we must keep in mind that sections do have the ability to be more restrictive when it comes to this Department of Health guidance, and some sections are considering, if they haven't already made the determination, to not allow any fans to attend games.
Matt Spielman asks about Governor. He said today continuing, and I think this is just related to the document, Governor continuing today to prohibit competition across regions. Does that give you any feeling, positive or negative, looking ahead to spring championships?
I mean, today I'm only feeling positive. I think the authorization that we received is certainly a step in the right direction, and it benefits students and it benefits our schools in a tremendous way. So certainly feeling very positive and optimistic about the rest of the school year that we have before us.
Mike asks, is there anything that high-risk sports can do if they don't get approval from their local health department? I think that's either TBA / you fall back into what we were doing, correct?
Exactly. If they don't get authorization or permission from their local Department of Health, then they can continue to have skill development training, individualized training, and they just can't have contact or participate in any kind of games or contests.
So that's that. This kind of Lindsay didn't ask this question. I think it was Matt asked it, and Phil kind of piggybacks on it. Spring championships, do you have a feeling on those? Would you, it's early to say, and we're just kind of drinking in the news about winter today and fall too, but spring championships, if they're going to be authorized?
Well, right now we're planning on having spring championships, but I've continued to stress to our membership that championships are not the priority, nor are they the focus. The focus for our association at this point in time is maximum student participation. We have close to 600,000 student athletes that participate in interscholastic athletics within our association. That's our focus, that's our priority. And if we get the opportunity to have a spring championship, then we'll certainly take advantage of it, but that is not something that we're spending a lot of time looking at right now.
Again, questions in the chat, if you'd be so kind. We've got more time, so if you have more things to ask Dr. Zayas, please put them in the chat. Lindsay asked this question, I'll let you answer it. Fall sports season 2, there would be no state championships for those still, correct?
Yeah, there is no state championship for fall sports season 2.
Right. And we had already made the decision, the winter sports championships had been previously canceled, so that doesn't change. But as Robert had just said, obviously the goal is participation now for however many weeks a section is going to choose in the winter, and then obviously the fall sports season. Matt Spielman asked about with a condensed schedule, are official shortages more of a concern?
Well, we'll obviously be putting more games into a condensed period. We've always had concerns with official shortages, and that's one issue that we are going to have to work on with our member schools and with our sections to address.
Nicole in Binghamton, so she says, as far as scheduling, is it up to each section to determine how long the season will be for high risk sports?
Yes, that's going to be a section decision.
Okay. Phil Sanzo, will New York adopt some alterations to the basketball game as we've seen in others, i.e. no jump balls?
Yeah, we're not considering the no jump ball aspect at this point in time. We are going to provide sport considerations for all of our high risk sports, just as we've done for all low and moderate risk sports so far. But we're not going to see major alterations to the rules of the game for any particular sport.
This isn't really specific to what today's announcement is. It's kind of what the policy has always been. What is the policy or our position on athletes who want to play 2 varsity sports at once, which I think means in the same season, they want to play on 2 teams?
That's very much a section decision and also a school district decision. We do not have any rules or regulations prohibiting that type of activity at the state.
One more time, if you've got anything, put it in the chat, or if there's anything we may have missed or you want us to highlight, certainly we've got the opportunity. I'm just looking at the inbox to make sure I'm not missing anybody sending me an email question. I guess as we wait for a question or two to come in, Robert, kind of the broad strokes of the situation, we waited a long time for an announcement like this. And I think there were, I use the analogy, kids probably got a little anxious and maybe started to lose hope. And I'm sure some coaches and, maybe even administrators, there became a point where it was like, I just don't know if it's going to happen. But today felt really good because I think a lot of people got the news they were waiting for.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a parent and I see the impact that this delay and not having high school sports has impacted on my own daughter. And she's a constant reminder as I sit across the dinner table from her every single night about to just witness what's taking place. So from a parent perspective, this is great news. From an executive director, State High School Athletic Association perspective, this is a great news, but it's phenomenal news for our student athletes.
If you'd be so kind to, some people kind of got here late, if you could just kind of reiterate some of the things maybe they missed. So Ken Drake wanted to know if I missed this is for high risk sports, is low risk good to go depending on the section. And I think he means just the approval to begin to practice the play.
Yeah, low and moderate risk sports are good to go. However, with the guidance that was provided today, they are now confined to participating within their own region or county or contiguous region. That's an important aspect that was provided in today's guidance.
Ben asked the question, and I think I know the answer, but I'll leave it to you. If a school participated in the fall, meaning they played a sport in their fall section season, they can't participate again in fall too, right?
Yeah, no student athlete may participate in 2 seasons within a given school year unless they are given permission and a waiver of what is our representation rule. Very few schools have applied for that or received a waiver of that rule.
This is kind of a question moving forward, and it's I smile because the amount of communication that you've had with the state and with the state health department and the governor's office has been massive. So the question is, what kind of contact will you have with state officials moving forward?
I mean, we've always had a great relationship with our state officials. I think what we've been dealing with has only strengthened that relationship and that partnership. So I have confidence that we'll continue communicating in an effective manner, and we'll continue doing so to benefit student athletes.
Again, let's see, this is a clarification. So to clarify, a student athlete cannot play 4 seasons this year.
No, a student athlete would be able to participate in 4 seasons this year because a student athlete could have played soccer in the fall. They could swim or play basketball in the winter sports season. They could play football in fall sports season too. And then that student athlete could play baseball or run track in the spring and essentially participate in 4 separate sports in this school year, which is a very unique situation for some of our more talented student athletes.
We always hear about 3 sports stars, 4 sports stars, but again, the other thing is the sections with the overlap. You could have an overlap where your seasons come together, and you may not be at the start of one of your seasons, using fall 2 and spring as an example.
Yeah, one of the other aspects of the overlap that we have been made aware of is not just multi-sport student athletes participating, but we also have coaches that coach in multiple seasons. And we also have officials that officiate various sports. So I think all of those things are going to be examined and they're going to be looked at to ensure that when we do host a high-risk sports season, or there may be overlap between one season and another, that all of those things are taken into consideration.
Lindsay Kramer in Syracuse asked a question, and again, to the point of everything kind of happened fast this afternoon. We got the news a little before 3 o'clock, and not long after that, we had an opportunity to talk to the section executive directors and kind of break the news to them. Lindsay asked in the call with the section executive directors, did you get a feel? Did you get any sense, or did you hear anybody talking about potentially sections or schools that might opt out of high-risk sports in the winter?
Yeah, that wasn't part of any discussions that I've had today with anyone. I think the feeling has been a feeling of optimism and excitement for the authorization that was provided today. And I think we've all been waiting for the opportunity to work around the clock to get things ready to go for our student athletes.
Question about remote learning. If a school is remote, using virtual learning, are they able to participate, meaning play sports, or is that decided by the section?
Yeah, great question, because I think that has come up. The Department of Health guidance that we have been provided, and this was provided months ago, is that if a school is forced to close as a result of an increase in confirmed COVID cases, then they must suspend their interscholastic athletic program until they resume in-person education. However, if a school closes and goes remote out of an abundance of caution, or they've been remote for an extended period of time and it doesn't have anything to do with an increase in confirmed COVID cases, then that school district could participate in interscholastic athletics and be in compliance with the Department of Health guidance.
This one specific to health departments, I'll let you comment on it. Have you received any guidance from local health departments if they're going to allow high-risk high school sports? More specifically, have you heard from health departments if they're going to let this happen or not?
I've seen a few posts on Twitter from county executives or local Department of Health stating that they would be able to provide authorization, but I mean, we're talking about, this is 4.5 hours old, so we really haven't spoken to a lot of people outside of our direct membership.
I was going to say, I read some tweets and saw some things that said, media members have contacted local health departments, and you can search those out on your own to see where we stand with that. This is a good one from Nate Lowe, because I think, we talk about the timing of everything, that about 3 o'clock, this all came down the pike for us. Nate asked, did the state officials give you any idea that this announcement was coming today, or were you as surprised as the rest of us?
No, I mean, we've been working closely with state officials, and I've remained optimistic that they were looking at this situation just like we were. And I truly believe that our state officials have the best interests of our schools and student athletes as their focus. So we've been anticipating some update and guidance. We didn't particularly think it was going to come today at 3 o'clock, but we're more than thrilled and certainly excited and appreciative of the guidance that was provided to provide so many student athletes with the opportunity to participate in their sport in the coming weeks and months.
I will say this, and I probably should have started our Zoom session with this. It's nice to have everybody together to talk about something so positive. Every time we've gotten together for one of these Zooms, it has unfortunately been because of a cancellation or a delay or for something that wasn't positive news. So to be able to spend time with you on a Friday night at 7 o'clock, as inconvenient as it may be for some of you, it's nice to have some positivity to today's announcement. So that was one thing I wanted to make sure that we shared with you. Robert, no more questions in the chat, so I think we've kind of hit the end. We'll get one more in from Paul. Is there any guidance on whether any sports that are now considered high risk would be reclassified to moderate or low?
No, there's no guidance on that. I actually serve on our National Federation Sports Medicine Advisory Committee, and I'm a part of a subcommittee that's looking at that on a national level. But right now, thankfully, here in the state of New York, there really isn't a reason to reclassify those sports from high to moderate, because we do have authorization for all sports to participate with permission from their local Department of Health. So certainly exciting news. And it assures us that sports like boys lacrosse, that was categorized as a high-risk sport by our Department of Health, is going to have the opportunity to play this spring. And I know there's an awful lot of sports out there, football, volleyball, that are scheduled to start on March 1st. Today, they were given the go-ahead. And from a student perspective or a coach perspective, I can just imagine how excited they are this evening to receive that news.
Yeah. I'll answer this one. Nate asks, just to clarify, no practices can begin until February 1st, no matter what, on high risk. That is correct. February 1. Go ahead.
No practices that will count towards the minimum practice requirement. No practices that involve contact in the high risk categorization. However, schools can continue, just as they have been given the opportunity to do all along, to have off-season conditioning workouts and activities that don't involve contact, but are more focused on skill development.
There you go. So on that note, we want to thank you all for taking some time on a Friday night to be with us. Again, this was recorded. I will post it to the NYSPHSAA YouTube page in a little bit. So if you missed it or need something, please pull a soundbite from there. And as always, reach out to us if we can help. We're going to spend the weekend kind of digesting everything we found out tonight. The new document will come out on Monday, and I'm sure we'll get together at some point next week. So Dr. Zayas, as always, thanks for taking the time.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe. Great seeing you.
Have a great weekend. Go Bills.
Thank you.